Got it. Okay. Hi, welcome, Diana. Okay, we are going to start now. Okay, thanks for turning up for this event and for my talk. It's about uh, part of it is about my story and how we move from there on our own personal transformation journey. Um, it's great that you all are here today, and this is something you want to work on. So maybe one of the things I would actually like to say first is that I'll tell you a bit about how I reached where I am today. So I am spiritually awakened, and the process never ends, just like everyone else. So let me tell you like about how it all started out. So basically all my life I had been someone who, just like everybody, would strive for the best and just constantly work and head towards a greater self of direction. And I went on to study more and explore more. And I always wanted the best, but it was through hard work that I had to come with the best. And so I finished everything and I reached the level of the highest level of education, and I realized I still was a, very much empty. But through life, I was always searching for one thing. And in everything I did, I was looking for happiness and love. And I used to always have grow up and be from a very good family. We always practiced religion and also treating people kindly. So we generally grew up with that. And eventually I did get married, and I moved to the States. And then eventually I came back and I ended up in Singapore. So I'm born Malaysian. And when I returned to Singapore and I was working here, some events happened in my life. And it was like the moment where most of us would say a lot of tough things always happen to us. But this one was something like the universe pulling out the rug under your feet without you having a clue it's going to happen. And at that point, you feel and you actually lose everything that matters to you. So uh, I lost my marriage unexpectedly, out of situations that was unpredictable. And I felt very lost. And I almost wanted to give up everything in my life. I still had a very good job, but I felt empty. I was alone at that point of time, and because I was working far away. And I wasn't very close to many people at that point because of the distance. And so I went on from there, and I decided, no, it can't be here. I'll just keep going and see where this ends up. Life keeps going on. But with that emptiness, one day as I was sitting alone, a moment happened where I asked myself deep down inside and said, there is nothing that feels so hollow, and I have never felt this in my entire 32 years of my life. So at that point, I was praying to God and the universe, and I asked from a space that I had never asked before. I don't know where it came from, but it was like a cry of help. And it took quite a long time. And at that point, because I had spent so much time doing that, I went to sleep because I had cried a lot emotionally. I was just torn and broken at that. And I went to sleep. And the next day, when I woke up, I had this very great experience that lasted through an entire day that I have never felt in my entire life. it was like waking up on air, feeling like there was love only God could give, the universe could give. It was being so compassionate, so being felt love. And when I went to work that day, I was looking out and observing nature, and everything looked so beautiful. I was taking in the breath of fresh air, and it just felt weird. And I thought to myself, because I hadn't seen anyone yet until I reached work, that am I actually alive? Like, am I still walking on this earth? And when I reached home that day, not a feeling of anything negative was overpowering me or empowering me. Everything was so positive and nothing even intervened to create those effects. And that's one day. And then the next day is when it started. So this is when they call it the moment of what some of us experience. It's called the dark night of the soul. And it started the next day. And what happens from there? And mind you, at this point, I had no clue about anything called spirituality, uh, meditation, anything pertaining to it at all, like truth be told. So I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I realized every problem in my life started resurfacing, not by situations, but from myself. And I started to address them, and not from a perspective of that other people were wrong, but I got to see where I could have changed either my perception, either looked at it a different way, or either realized where I had made errors. Days passed, months passed, and I did this every day until I had realized the very next day. There was a day I woke up and it said, why don't you sit down? There was a voice in my head that said, why don't you sit down and just close your eyes? Because I had never meditated before, and I am someone who suffers from ADHD and it's mild. So to sit in a position is quite difficult. But I said, okay, why not try? And I closed my eyes and I saw myself on a beach, sitting on a rock far away. And as I walked close by, I looked at myself and I said, oh my God, everything I was searching for, everything I wanted to ask for was actually love that is found within me. There is no one that you can love more than yourself before you start to love others. Only then it comes out in truth. So, and I said, if there's anybody in this world I haven't forgiven, it is myself. I have blamed myself so much for so many errors. And I gave myself in that meditation what I would say was the best hug ever. And it felt great. I came out of it and I realized I was at a very different state after that. So life goes on from there. But one of the main things was I continued to learn more without just reading, but through intuitive downloads. Intuition became very strong over time. Senses developed, and empathic was always my trait, and it became more evident. And I was initially, it was all triggering. It was very difficult. When you reach a level of very high state spirituality, grounding becomes difficult. So I had to come back down to this earth and realize that it's much more of just staying here and being able to apply to your own life and to the real world of everybody you meet. And eventually, I read on more books and learned more of what I was experiencing at that time and realized there was a connection. So, why exactly am I trying to tell you my story? Is because what I'm trying to say here is this: I am no different, neither is any spiritual person different from anybody present here today who is on this transformational journey or trying to seek answers on how we can remain further. How can we be part of this journey? Uh, what happens when we encompass daily things? So, one of the most important things to always remember is this: I am you and you are me. And the second part is, regardless of what journey you're on, whether you started as a transformational journey, whether you're going through life, whether you're already spiritually evolved and you realize there are moments that not everyone can complete their dark night within one go. Many people go through it through life, but spirituality is always about growing. The most important thing is that practice every day requires you to apply it in real life and never stop through the day. So even a spiritual person goes through the same life experiences as everybody. None of the negative situations happening in the people around them or their family or sadness changes. That is definitely for sure. It does occur. But what does change is how we react in terms of our anger, in terms of our um, emotions, in terms of when people say when to avoid, who to eliminate. So much of what I've written about my story, explaining about I am you and you are me, can be found in this book that I have written. And yeah, okay, so it's available on our website, which we will put in the link below. But from here, what I'm trying to say is I've moved on to build something I call at my website, which is encompassing what is known as the mind and heart connection. So, what this mind and heart connection is about is generally we have to start with our mind. Our mind is filled with thoughts of every day. So, if we're at a point where we're trying to transform, we haven't responded in a transformative way, or we haven't found that start yet, and you're like, where do I begin? So the first thing you got to do is work with your mind. You have to know what you have gone through in the past. And if it's very difficult, what's important is what triggers you in the present life that has made you react in the same way in the past. Remember, the past does not define your future. It defines who you become and what journey you're on after that. So much of our mind is encompassed by our thoughts. By when we go to sleep, many of us don't sleep in bed. We actually go through the entire day thinking about all the errors we have made, uh, all the mistakes that have happened, who has angered us, or something like that. Instead, when we sleep, the most important thing to think about is what has happened to us through the day, and what could we have done instead and face the situation differently. That way, you don't remain in a mindset of just sad emotions or having insomnia and tossing, turning. Because at the end of the day, trust me, whatever situation was created on that is sleeping very well, but you aren't. And that itself creates a more depressive state the next day. It makes you want to stop your journey. You feel like you're not going anywhere. So one of the things to do is always focus this. So I always say, if you have a bedtime, try and keep it early. Try not to go to bed later than 11. 11 is when you have time to actually be to yourself in peace before you actually fall asleep. The key is always early to bed and early to rise. It's really important. So if let's say you go to bed at 11, give yourself about maybe 15 minutes before that to just sit up on bed and think about everything. Don't lie down. If you're trying to go through your thoughts, think about it and think how you could have reacted. And then from there, what you can do is you can actually lie down once you're done and just think about what are the grateful things that have happened to you that day, and smile and thank the universe and thank God. And you will realize as long as you keep that in your head and close your eyes and remain in a meditative state, your sleep comes fast. So many people say this meditation requires you to sit up, it requires you to sit still, it requires you to close your eyes. Well, there are various different kinds of meditation. So when you are doing that kind of meditation, it actually means shutting your eyes, shutting your mind, and just going to your beautiful naturistic place. If it helps, there's always soft sounds. There's no blasting music, of course, and you'll be good. So that's a part of the initial mind. Then when we speak about the heart, so here what I'm trying to say about the heart is some of us are already on a spiritual path and we go back, forth, back, forth. So when we get the spiritual path, what do we do from here is this. So you get elation, you get happiness, you get some people, they are meant to be just on a spiritual path, but they also have to do something, and that is called grounding. Okay, if you're on a spiritual journey, you need to remember that as you meditate, be it as you're walking, as you're taking time, as soon as you wake up in the morning, usually the best time for meditation is as soon as you wake up. You don't need to spend 30 minutes. You don't need to spend an hour. Truth be told, let me tell you this. When someone asks me, how much time do you spend meditating? I always say, well, to tell you, the longest I meditate at one go is 10 minutes. The best for me is always 5. And when they ask me, how many times a day do you meditate? I always say, I'm constantly meditating. See, what I mean by this is I'm aware and I'm alert to my surroundings. I'm observant. I take in the beauty. I enjoy the nature. I do not take in negative. I observe. But you get to draw yourself back by just saying, I don't need to be a part of this. But then you turn your mind and focus to something else. So meditation is constant. Look, some of the ways to meditate also includes affirmations. Affirmations doesn't require you to say it once a day while you're doing various different things, walking around house, maybe while you're at work and you're just doing normal stuff. You can always say it in your head. And affirmations never need to remain constantly the same. They're just things that you feel for that day that you need to do and get through that day, and they can keep changing. So that's part of one part of the heart. And then it comes down to once you've grounded yourself, how do you practice what you've learned spiritually? I always tell spiritual people, the most important thing is you practice what you preach. If you can't do that, then half the people who be coming to you wouldn't be getting the right advice because they would eventually learn that it's constant, but you need to apply it in your life in order to see the beauty in your life by itself. So one of the things you need to do is practice what you preach. And what I mean by that is not just in your life of how you treat yourself, but to every stranger that you meet. How you handle situations is another way. And when I say every stranger that you meet, I don't mean go and just talk to every random stranger, but I always say a smile a day goes, and saying hello, acknowledging people. And many people acknowledge people. If there's one thing I've always realized in a lot of countries, um, in majority of the countries, we always acknowledge the people who look like of our standard, of our class. How many of us have taken the time to actually acknowledge the older generation or the people who clean out garbage or the workers who work? Sometimes all they want to hear is, how you doing? Have you eaten? Stuff like that. So it's very simple. So when you realize you do these things, it's actually a part of gratitude that you realize for yourself at the end of the day that you did, that you're grateful for. So it's not to say that I'm doing it or you're doing it for the sake of, oh, I want to feel great about myself. But you actually have to come from your heart. That's why I say it comes from the heart. So what I'm trying to say here is this: practicing it in your daily life and in everyday situation that you face as a spiritual journey is very important. That's the only way you remain on the journey. Another thing about the heart is this: everything that you have saved from the mind and from your past is not something for you to revisit. I'll give you an example. So in my case, I have to give my case as an example. In my case, the situation that happened to me in my marriage that ended it was bad. It wasn't on my accord, but they were very beautiful people, the family and that person itself, my ex-husband. So one of the things I always say is today, I couldn't see that when I was trying to solve my problems in the mind. But when I reached a spiritual journey and I was in the heart, one of the things that I did was this: I realized the beauty in all of it, and that love, compassion, and forgiveness after forgiving myself is when I was able to accept everyone. So how do I learn with that second part of the heart would be, if the person comes back, would I take the person? Would I give more to the family? No, it doesn't work that way. I would acknowledge them. I would treat them right, but doesn't mean I indulge myself more in it. And I never go back to the mind to think about these situations because what's solved, it's solved. That's why I always said the mind and solving yourself is very essential. You do not need to have a dark night. Not everyone goes through a dark night. I always tell people this. A dark night is what every individual can choose just by solving their issues. And once it's solved, you don't go back there. So the second part of this message in the heart is your learnings from that teaches you how not to act in any situation that is similar in the current. And even if you've solved it, you at that point you will realize you yourself won't, and then you know you're at the heart. So that's an important realization. That's where I am, at the heart. The third thing is, if you're coming from the heart and you're already on a spiritual journey, the initial stage always involves meditating to open up your senses. So a lot of people find a lot of ways. There's candle, there's incense, there's the dark, there's out in the nature. But be closest to nature because your five senses are always more attracted to these. They require the communication of the universe. The communication of the universe uses vibration and energy, which we hold. And that's what strengthens these five senses. So this is very essential, and this makes your heart stronger. The fourth point is this: the heart to remain strong, even when moments of sadness happen, doesn't mean you do not feel emotions. Let me tell you this. A lot of people refuse to cry because it's a weakness. A lot of people refuse to laugh or smile because they're encompassed by thoughts. But one of the most important things to realize is this: your emotions matter. Anger is not one of them. Anger is not an emotion. Anger is something that you are able to calm yourself by closing your eyes. That's not one of the emotions that you show. So every emotion matters, no matter what you show. And your voice is essential. If you do not open your mouth and say something to anyone for that matter in a way that does not trigger a sense of, how do I say, you are telling people how you feel and you expect them to respond back, and you would want someone to treat you in the exact same way. So you would have to speak to them and tell them exactly what you're feeling, the same way that you want them to do to you. And shouting at you and just blasting at you is not one of the ways. But saying it helps solve situations really fast. So all these are actually coming from the heart, yeah. They're not coming from the mind. They're all coming from a place of heart. Why? Because it comes from a place of love. With love, there is no anger. There is no resentment. There is no sense of revenge. There's only truth. There's only wisdom. And there's only who you are truly. The last thing about the heart is this: everything you do requires you to look at it from a standpoint of love. everything that you do, from how you treat someone to how you want someone to treat you. And that practice goes on not just one day, it goes on every day. One of the most important things I tell people is this: how many times do you wake up and tell your loved ones who are staying in the same household that you love them and mean it from your heart? And how many times do you hear it back? This is very essential, but you only do these things when you are ready, but you have to do it. One of the most important practices that you can actually practice is slowly saying these to your parents, your grandparents on a daily basis. It's not difficult to do. It's just 3 words. It's much lesser than all the other words we say in a day. And to start off your day so beautifully, to start off your day with a smile and a hug is the greatest thing you can do. And before you go to bed, the most essential thing is saying to that person how grateful you are to have them in your life. So that's a part of the heart. Now, what is the heart and mind connection about? When you do this practice every day, that's when you have to connect it with the mind. Okay, so why do I say this? The working life goes on. Every life goes on. Everything we face goes on. Our brain doesn't stop functioning. Logic is necessary. That's the part of the mind that is required. Logic is very necessary. How we act, how we can become better, how we learn more in order to improvise. What are the things that we can learn? Some of us want to learn and develop things probably on our own, like software or, our own business or anything for that matter. Some of us want to do it spiritually. So if you want to, there's so many links, there's so many ways. Read books, look for it. Follow the right ones always. That's why the mind is essential. The mind requires you also to be able to work and know how to react, how you respond at work. How do you know when to come back? A lot of people say a 9 to 5 job is a 9 to 5. But I notice people who 9 to 5 becomes 9 to 7, 9 to 7 becomes 9 to 8, and it doesn't end at 8, and it comes back, and 8 to 12 becomes I'm still in front of the computer sending out emails. At that point, it's the damage to yourself. It's damage to your health. It's damage to your mind. And it is not the kind of life that you should live for your own self. So the mind and the heart connection is only built once the mind of every situation that you want to face and address one by one is faced. And once the heart is open and once the connection is made, it happens in such a way that logic is triggered. You will know how to react, and you will also realize you're coming from a very different kind of space. Look, this process is something that takes time. I started my journey at the age of 32, and I'm 37 this year. And at 35, did I develop this connection? So for me, it took 3 years. because it's a state of where I never stopped and I never invited more people into my life again, just to focus and solve in my mind. I chose to remain with very important people in my family. That was my immediate family. One or two couple of very close friends and a couple of very close family members. Everyone else, I just shut off. And when I shut off, what I meant was, didn't mean I didn't speak to them. If they texted me, I replied them. But it wasn't to prolong or stuff like that. I just needed to solve myself. And they understood it, and bless them, I had that. And during that point, I realized a lot of people started drop away, and I was totally okay with it, because at that point I realized that these are the people that weren't very real, and I didn't need them, and they also didn't need me. So those who remained, and I went on after that to develop the heart connection. And during that point, I really went through a lot, because at that point, you realize that grounding is very essential. You lose your sense of self. Everything feels so elated. Then you reach a point where it feels too heavy. You get massive headaches, and you're unable to feel the real world, and you avoid real work. And I was blessed because my work was at an understandable position. And eventually I learned to build the mind and heart connection in at the age of 35. Okay. And from there I started. So when I started, what I did was, I never forced myself. All this was something that just kept happening. So what I'm trying to tell you is this: not everyone is able to learn this journey by themselves. Everyone will need to learn to ask for help. It is very essential to ask for help. Um, and we also provide that, and my website will be provided to you now. And also, the rest of the speakers who are going to take you through the rest of these event also have links helping you through this journey. Look at them. Also ask them questions at the end of it. Look at their websites. Look at what they have to offer. Ask for help when you need it. Um, And one of the main things I want to say was this. So during that connection, for me, I learned to work with energy during that time. And I practiced a lot of Tai Chi, and that was a lot of grounding for me. I focused on a lot of how I work with energy, and it was beautiful. And I developed that connection immediately. And it didn't take very long after that. And through the 2 years, I have been working on this business and on this journey and helping people open up themselves more. I let people use their own personal life experience to work with it. So I work with people's personal life experiences. How can you see your life experience, and how can you come out of it, and how can you take your journey through the rest of the way, and that it's an everyday thing. So every day I face situations, but through the mind and heart connection, one of the things that I learned was my reactions were very different by itself. I was very fast to know when I could just walk away and not be involved in situations where I didn't need to be involved. I gave where I had to give, and I didn't where I didn't have to. And I took where I needed to take justfully. And from there, I went on to speak about truth. The truth about what we face is the voice that we have to tell everyone once the journey is over. And that matters, because that's what transforms everyone. It starts everybody's journey. So your transformation journey matters, not just to you, But once you've solved yourself, because it starts with you, you're the most essential to solve. And then you help people right in front of you first. And from there, you move on to help the others. As you go on from there, one of the things you have to do is by helping others, you need to tell your story. And through that, it doesn't cost anything to tell a story. There isn't a price you need to put on it to tell your story, but your voice matters just like mine. So, like I always say, I am you and you are me. And this journey is something I'm very proud that all those who are watching and all those who are present, even those who are going to watch later on the recordings, I am very grateful and proud of y'all for turning up. And I thank y'all very much. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to put the website up, and yeah, that's already been done. And one of the things you can also do is I'm going to open up the floor. Okay, I'm going to open up the floor, and I'm hoping that someone would have a voice to ask any question. Remember, the most important thing everyone needs to remember is this: there is no right, there is no wrong. Your way is your way, and that's the only way. So I'm going to open up the floor now, and I hope some of y'all could ask any question, whether it's your personal question. If you're not afraid, please go ahead. Uh, I'll open it up for, let's say, about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and please come up with any question that you would like to ask. Yeah.
Sorry, I will start. I mean, like, can I?
Hi, Elisa. Hi.
Hi, hello. So I'm Elisa. I'm Italian. I used to live in Singapore. Nice to meet you.
Yes,
um,
nice to meet you.
so actually, I find myself at times like really struggling, mostly like when like before going to bed. It's really difficult, like from to detach from the rest of the day in a way. So like going to bed with this like overwhelming feelings related to work or other stress, and like what you mentioned, I think is quite useful, like setting up this routine like 15 minutes before 11. And but like, how do you enter in the mindset really of meditating, and what kind of tools can really be applied? Because honestly, I've never done it, and I must admit, and I'm ashamed to say that most of the time before going to sleep, I look at my phone. So,
Right,
which I guess is quite common. So, any
right.
tips would be welcome.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll respond that to you now. Okay, thank you so much for asking that question. Yes, it's a very important question. So uh, it's good you brought it up because that's one of the things I always forget. So I always tell people, please, when you enter your room, where your place is, where your bed is, your phone should be done. There's no more looking at your phone. There's no more scrolling through mindless social media. There's no more responding to messages. It's done. It's just done. Okay. You just put it away. It's a practice that you got to do. So, step one is putting your phone away. Okay. Step two, yes. Through the day, work will be overpowering, empowering your thoughts through the day. But one of the things I did mention was this. Okay, so it's a good practice that you actually learn one thing. What has happened has happened. What's going to happen tomorrow, you can't control. Neither can you think about tomorrow because tomorrow is tomorrow. Let me give you a very simple example. So everyone asks me this. So what shall we eat tomorrow? And I always say this, truth be told, one of the things about spiritually awakened people is this: we are not afraid of that. And that's truth be told. And we accept the reality of life. So, truth be told, which is the exact fact, is who knows? I always say, who knows what tomorrow will be? Let's wake up and then we'll see how it goes. So, that is pointless thinking about what happens tomorrow at work or how much work you're left with or what happened through the day with work. Instead, that 15 minutes that I said would be, how can you maybe react differently towards the work? Organize, I always tell people, organization is very important at work. If you have something to do, if it's due on that day, do it beforehand so you don't rush and pile up at the last minute. And if you organize, okay, I'm going to do this for today and shut it off, I'm done. And someone throws on stuff on you and they say, I need it now, I need it now. And you're doing something that has already been told, you got to ask them, is this more important than what's due at the moment? If it isn't, then I can't give you that by the end of the day. You got to speak your voice. You got to speak your truth. That's the only way. So these are the things that you can tell yourself, I'm going to do it the next day. This is the difference that I'm going to do the next day. I'm going to prioritize what's important for that day at work, not think about tomorrow, not encompass myself with what has happened at work. It's done. I always tell people, when you're back from work and you're having dinner, in fact, when you walk into your house, though, you shouldn't be thinking about work anymore. You just let go. Ask people instead in the household, how's your day? What happened? Or think, what can I do at home now that I'm home? So that way, eventually, you will have to forget about your work. So when you go to bed, yes, it might come into your head because tomorrow is work again. So one of the things you can do is actually, tomorrow is tomorrow. Nobody knows what's tomorrow. Nobody knows if there's even work. Who knew there would be COVID? Who knew the world would be in lockdown? No one did. Everybody woke up one day and they said, don't go out anymore. So that's the most important example that I give people. This is the most important thing. To notice that COVID was a reality and a situation that can happen in everyone's life, just like anything. So don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about what has happened to the day unless it's going to change your reaction of how you act. So that's the part that I meant. That's the 15 minutes before. Now, for the meditative part, there is no specific way, Alisa, to tell you the truth. And there is nothing to be ashamed of. Trust me, because a lot of people have this problem. There is no way to meditate. You just have to come from a place of the heart. And when people ask me, how do I do this? So when you go to bed or when you want to wake up and do a slight meditation, try this as a start. It's called taking 3 mindful breaths with your eyes closed. It means you actually breathe and feel your lungs expand, and you know that you're breathing. Because when we walk through the day, tell me, how many of us actually realize we're breathing? Not many. So it's very essential. So at least start with that 5 minutes when you're already down, laying down on your bed. Then do that 3 mindful breaths and close your eyes and think of a beautiful place, maybe a beach or something. One of the sounds that people play are soft sounds. There are apps for this, but I don't recommend people using phones at night. So most people have a device that turns on, and you can either use your device or you can just plugged in your earphones and just listen to it as you doze off. And you start slowly with 3 deep breaths, feeling it first thing in the morning and last thing before you go to bed, and slowly start increasing to at least 5. When you realize you can do that, meditation from there doesn't require you to do anything. It just requires you to start with these breaths and close your eyes, and you just feel around you. Not your mind, never your mind. Feel your emotions and just focus on your breathing. That's the easiest to do. To start it off, just focus on your breathing. And I always say 5 minutes max. If you're just starting, then just do the 3 breaths. Eventually, you will realize it comes easy. So then you can move on to various different kinds of meditation from there, but just start with this first. So these are definitely one of the things that you could do that I would recommend for beginners. It's pretty easy to do. Just focus on your breath. I'm sure that will be great for you, and you will realize it will clear your mind, and just go to bed. Just focus on that happy place, play that music, and just go to bed from there. Okay, can we have any other questions? If Alisa, can I ask you, does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks a
No
lot. I
problem.
will try to do it. It's really
Yes.
like about just starting,
Sure.
I guess.
Sure. Thank you. I just let us know through, I think you used to work with Julie, right? You can always let Julie know how it's working out with you, yeah?
Yeah. I will keep her posted.
Sure, thank you. All right, do we have any other questions? I think there's one in the chat. Is it from Adriana? Yeah, okay, Adriana. What is your process of meditation? Sorry, I'm not alone. Yeah, sure. Okay, so my process is I always do this. Before I go to bed, I do the 3 mindful breaths. And from there, I just shut my eyes and I go to sleep. And I'm generally someone who through the years has suffered from insomnia. It's not because of mind or whatever. It's I use chamomile tea. It helps me just feel a little bit lighter. And then I do my 3 mindful breaths. And even when I take time to go to sleep, I'm not encompassed by thoughts. So from there, my meditation goes on to just saying how grateful I am and what my affirmations are through the day. And I say my prayers. I do pray. So I say my prayers and eventually I fall asleep. My morning meditation involves 5 minutes of actually listening to, you can choose whatever music you like. So my journey was very different. My music changed a long time. And now I just use a lot of sound vibration music. And I just close my eyes and I focus from a heart-centered space. And I breathe in and breathe out. And I always, because one of the things once you open up and heal yourself is you come from a place of love. So I always say, I am from a place of love. And from there, I see, because my meditation level is a bit different, so I see a lot of things and I get a lot of downloads at the same time. But it's the starting day is true peace. So it's always feeling your heart, opening up your heart, and I only take 5 minutes the max. And through the day, that's my constant meditation. whatever I walk, whatever I see, I'm observant. I spend time in nature. I stand on the ground outside and observe with barefoot. Although this is Singapore, I still do it. I don't care. And I go to open spaces. Even if I go to a coffee shop, I don't sit on the inside. Even if I go to a restaurant and it's exclusive, I don't sit on the inside. I like to sit on the outside. And all that for me is very nice. So I'm talking to people, but I'm still observant. So these are the meditations that I practice. So these are some of the things that you can probably do as well. I hope that answers your question, Adriana. Breathwork. So, okay, so Diana has asked something. Okay, she's telling the whole group. Yeah, breathworks help. Yeah, it does stabilize anxiety and everything. So that's why I always say it's essential to go to bed with it. It's essential to start your day with it because you don't know what you're gonna face through the day. So you need to be at a place where you yourself are at peace first and then head out. And anytime through the day you feel like someone is frustrating you or doing anything, go ahead and you know, ask for a moment where you can just close your eyes and just breathe. You don't need 5 minutes. You just need to breathe and close your eyes. That helps a lot. Okay. So is there any more questions? Okay, so if there's none at this moment, what I would like to say is now we would provide you our email address. And for those who have any questions anytime, please email me at fmna1808@gmail.com. I will also put it in the link in the chat below. And at any time, if you have questions, please feel free to address them and I will answer them as fast as I can. So throughout your entire journey, yeah, there's no time limit for this if you have questions anytime. So before I end, I would like to say for those who turned up on this, I am very glad. At the end of the 5 days, we will let you all know of those who have received the whatever the speakers are going to give you all. And we hope that that's the free gift. And we hope that you enjoyed this journey and what we had to share today. And your feedback would matter to us. So if you could send that to us also on our email, that would be great. Or how we can improvise or what other tips or help that you need, that would be great. Uh, yeah, so I also want to let you all know that the next one is on the 27th of April by Adriana itself. And she's present here today. She's the one who asked the question in the chat. She has a very good story to tell herself, and she's also spiritually awakened, and she's still on her journey. And she has questions that she would also be able to answer from her talk. So that's at 10 p.m. 7 p.m. 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Wait, let me just check because we have so many things on the schedule. I'm sorry for this. I have to give you both timings. I have to give the Eastern timing. Yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern timing and 7 a.m. on the 28th. For Adriana Lee, for everyone else who are going on my timing. Okay, yeah. So if you all have any questions, please feel free to ask anytime and do email us your feedback, and I hope you had a good time today. And thank you so much once again for being a part of this journey and choosing your process of transformation. And I hope that you realize one thing, and the most essential thing is that practice is every day, and it's practice that makes you perfect. And perfect also means imperfect is the new perfect. Thank you once again, and hope to see you at the next session of Adriana's Sleep. All right, bye.